She stood in our kitchen as if we were casually talking about vacation plans. "I'm giving you two options," she said in a calm voice. "Accept that I want him, or stay out of my way." I looked at my wife of 20 years, waiting for the punchline. But it never came. That was when I realized she had already rehearsed this. "I'm Kevin Walsh, 42 years old. For the last 18 years, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a solid job as a supply chain manager at a logistics company in Denver, a nice house in the suburbs, a daughter in college, and Michelle, my wife of 20 years, who I believed was my partner in everything. Michelle turned 40 last year, and that's when things started to change. She joined a new creative agency downtown as a digital media strategist. Her boss, Brandon Cole, was the type of guy who wore pricey sneakers to work and talked about disrupting industries while sipping on organic cold brew. At 40, successful, and according to Michelle, very much in tune with the future of branding. I met him once at their agency's launch party. He shook my hand like he was doing me a favor, called me brother, and then immediately forgot about me when someone more important entered the room. 3 months ago, Michelle began coming home different. Not angry, not distant, just different. She started talking about Brandon's vision, his leadership, his approach to life. She downloaded meditation apps, began reading books on breaking free from societal conditioning, and even suggested therapy to explore new dimensions of our relationship. I thought it was just a midlife crisis. Turning 40 does that to people. So I listened. I supported her. I gave her space. Then, last Thursday evening, as I sat at the kitchen table going over logistics reports, Michelle walked in. She poured herself a glass of wine, leaned against the counter, and said those words that still echo in my mind. "Kevin, I need to talk to you about something important." I looked up. She had that rehearsed expression, chin up, shoulders back, as if she had practiced this in front of a mirror. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Michelle began, swirling her wine glass. "About us, about what marriage means, about what I need to feel alive." I closed my laptop. "Okay, I'm listening," I said. She took a deep breath. "I'm giving you two options. Either you accept that I want to explore something with Brandon, or you stay out of the way while I do." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because the woman standing in front of me felt like a stranger. "Come again?" I asked. Michelle sighed, as if I was already being difficult. "I don't want this to be a fight. I'm being honest with you. I'm not sneaking around. I'm giving you the opportunity to evolve with me." Evolve with her. That phrase sounded too polished, too perfectly placed. She had rehearsed this. Maybe Brandon helped her write it. "Brandon and I connect on a level that's hard to explain," she continued, her voice softening. "It's not just physical. It's intellectual, emotional. He understands parts of me that you—" "Well, it's not a criticism, Kevin," she added. "But I've grown, and I don't want to shrink myself back down to fit into who we used to be." I didn't respond, not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew if I spoke right then, it wouldn't be calm. She continued, filling the silence with words like expansion, authenticity, and enlightened relationships. Every sentence felt like it had been pulled straight from a podcast or a self-help book. I stood up slowly, grabbed my phone, and walked out of the kitchen without saying a word. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. My face didn't look angry. It didn't even look hurt. It looked focused because something had shifted inside me at that moment. I could feel it in my spine, like a switch had flipped. She thought this was a negotiation. She had no idea I had already made my choice. She spoke about how we could grow in different ways but still care for each other. I nodded slowly, as if I was genuinely considering her words. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's all I'm asking," Michelle replied, reaching over to squeeze my hand. I let her. But while she thought I was evolving, I was planning. The first thing I did was call Tom Bradshaw, an old college friend who had become a divorce attorney. We met for lunch at a diner across town, where no one we knew would see us. "Kevin," Tom said, shaking his head after I explained everything. "I've heard this story a dozen times in the past 5 years. These conscious uncoupling types always think they're breaking new ground, but it's just the same betrayal with fancier words." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Document everything," Tom said, leaning back in his chair. "Text messages, bank statements, credit card receipts. If she's spending money on him or planning to leave, you need proof. Colorado's a no-fault state. But if you can show she's using marital assets for the affair, it could help. She hasn't left yet, I said. She's still testing the waters. Then she's still spending your money while she figures out her next move, Tom replied. And if she files first, she controls the narrative. You need to be ready. I nodded, taking in every word. One more thing, Tom added, his voice lowering. Don't tip your hand. Let her think you're considering her proposal. The more comfortable she gets, the more she'll reveal. I left lunch with a clear plan. At home, I started watching Michelle more closely, not obsessively, just attentively. I noticed how often she checked her phone, how she angled the screen away from me when a message came in, how she'd disappear into the bathroom for 15 minutes at a time. She thought she was being discreet. She wasn't. That night, I lay awake thinking about our daughter, Ashley. She was in her second year at Colorado State, studying environmental science. Smart, ambitious, and completely unaware of what was going on at home. I wanted to keep it that way until I had a plan. The next morning, I checked our joint bank account. Michelle and I had always kept our finances merged. One checking account, one savings account, shared credit cards. It was supposed to represent trust. Now, it just felt like vulnerability. I started running the numbers. Ashley's tuition for the spring semester was due in 2 months, $18,000. We had it covered in savings, but if Michelle decided to bolt and drain the accounts, that money would disappear. I couldn't let that happen. Years ago, when I first started at the logistics company, I had opened a separate savings account that Michelle didn't know about. Nothing shady, just a personal emergency fund. I'd been putting away $100 here and there from bonuses or overtime pay. Over the years, it had grown to about $32,000, my rainy day fund. Well, it was pouring now. I transferred another $5,000 from our joint account into that hidden account, spacing out the transactions to make them look like normal expenses, gas, groceries, a phantom car repair. Nothing Michelle would question. Then, I did something that made my stomach turn. I called Ashley. Hey, Dad. She answered, sounding cheerful. What's up? Hey, sweetheart. Just checking in. How are classes going? We chatted for a few minutes about her coursework and roommate situation. Then I steered the conversation where I needed it to go. Listen, Ash, I want to talk to you about something, I said carefully. Your tuition payment is coming up soon, and I'm going to handle it directly this time. I'll send it straight to the bursar's office. Okay, she said, sounding a little confused. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, I lied. I just want to make sure it's taken care of early. You focus on your studies. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. After we hung up, I sat in my truck in the grocery store parking lot and let out a long breath. I had just protected my daughter's future without her even knowing it was at risk. That evening, Michelle mentioned she was going to a team bonding event at Brandon's agency on Friday night. It's just drinks and networking, she explained, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. I should be home by 10 o'clock. Sounds fun, I said. Tell Brandon I said hi. She paused, met my eyes in the mirror, and smiled. You're really trying, aren't you? I'm thinking about what you said, I replied, about growth. Michelle walked over and kissed my cheek. Thank you for being open-minded. The second she left, I opened my laptop and logged into our shared credit card account. I wanted to see where she had been spending money. Sure enough, there it was, a hotel charge from 2 weeks ago, the Riverside in downtown Denver, $240. I cross-referenced the date with my own calendar. I had been at a supply chain conference in Boulder that night. She'd already slept with him. This wasn't a proposal. It was a confession after the fact. I screenshotted everything and emailed it to myself at a separate email address Michelle didn't know about. Tom was right. The more comfortable she became, the more careless she got. Michelle came home from her team bonding event at 11:30, not 10 o'clock as she had said. Her makeup was smudged, and she had that relaxed, carefree look people get after a few drinks, or something else. How was it? I asked from the couch, keeping my tone light. Great, she said, kicking off her heels. Really great. Brandon gave this amazing talk about authenticity and branding. It was inspiring. Sounds like it, I replied. She headed upstairs without saying another word, and I heard the shower turn on a few minutes later. While she was washing off whatever evidence she needed to erase, I made my move. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter. I had watched her enter her passcode enough times to memorize it. Our anniversary backward. The irony wasn't lost on me. I unlocked it and opened her messages. The conversation with Michelle and Brandon went back 6 months. 6 months of planning, flirting, and justifying. But it was the thread with Tiffany Moore, Michelle's best friend since college, that really hurt me. Michelle, I told him tonight. Gave him the 2 options, Tiffany said. And Michelle replied, he's processing. I think he'll accept it. Kevin's always been easygoing. What if he doesn't? Tiffany asked. Then I'll move forward anyway, Michelle said. I'm not putting my life on hold anymore. I kept scrolling, my jaw tightening with each message. Tiffany then said, Brandon really does it for you, huh? God? Yes, Michelle replied. He makes me feel 25 again. Kevin's a good guy, but he's so predictable. I need more than predictable right now. Tiffany responded, I get it. You deserve to feel alive. Exactly. And honestly, Brandon's not the only one I'm interested in. There's this marketing director at a client company who's been flirting with me. I might explore that too. My stomach churned. This wasn't just about Brandon. It was about Michelle reinventing herself as someone who didn't need commitment or loyalty, just validation. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to my secure account. Then I put the phone back exactly where I found it. When Michelle came downstairs in her robe, drying her hair, I was watching TV like nothing had happened. You coming to bed? She asked. In a bit, I said. She shrugged and went upstairs. I sat there in the dark, staring at the screen without really seeing it. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was building an entirely new life. One where I was optional at best and obsolete at worst. The next morning, I called Tom again. I've got the texts, I told him. And hotel receipts. It's worse than I thought. Tom was silent for a moment. How much worse? She's not just seeing him. She's planning to see other people too. This isn't an affair, it's a pattern. Tom sighed. Kevin, I hate to say this, but you need to move fast. If she's already emotionally checked out, it's only a matter of time before she files for divorce on her terms. You need to file first. I'm not ready yet, I said. Then get ready, Tom replied. Because she's already 3 steps ahead of you. I needed perspective from someone who'd been through the long haul. So, I drove to my parents' place in Boulder that Saturday. Dad was 71, Mom was 68, and they'd been married for 49 years. If anyone could tell me whether I was overreacting or justified, it was them. Mom made coffee while Dad and I sat on the back porch. He knew something was wrong the second he saw my face. What's going on, son? He asked. I told him everything. The ultimatum, the affair, the texts, the plans. I laid it all out without sugarcoating anything. Dad listened quietly, his weathered hands folded on the table. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Your mother and I had rough patches, he said finally. Every marriage does. But there's a difference between working through problems and asking permission to betray someone. She thinks she's being honest, I said. Like that makes it okay. Dad shook his head. Honesty without respect is just cruelty with better packaging. She's not being honest. She's managing you. There's a difference. Mom came out with the coffee and sat down. She'd obviously been listening from inside. Kevin, honey, let me ask you something, Mom said gently. If you stay, can you ever look at her the same way again? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. No, I admitted. I can't. Then you already know what you need to do, Mom said. The question isn't whether you should leave. It's whether you're going to leave with your dignity intact. Dad reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. Your grandfather used to say something I never forgot. A man who tolerates disrespect invites more of it. You teach people how to treat you, Kevin. Right now, Michelle thinks she can do whatever she wants because you won't fight back. I'm not a fighter, I said. Fighting doesn't mean yelling, Dad replied. Sometimes it means walking away before someone takes any more from you. When I got home that evening, Michelle was on the phone in the bedroom. I could hear her voice through the door, low and intimate, laughing at something. I didn't need to guess who she was talking to. I went to the garage, pulled out 3 empty boxes from storage, then walked into our bedroom closet and started packing her things. Not all of them, just enough to make a point. Her favorite dresses, the shoes she bought for networking events, the expensive perfume that Brandon had probably complimented her on. I packed them carefully, almost tenderly, and stacked the boxes in a guest room. Michelle didn't notice. She was too busy living her double life. That night, I slept in the guest room for the first time in 20 years. When Michelle asked why, I told her I had a cold and didn't want to keep her awake with coughing. She accepted the excuse without question. She had no idea the walls were already closing in. The following week, I did something I'm not proud of, but I had stopped caring about playing fair. Michelle had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and I saw an email notification pop up from someone named Derek. Derek, not Brandon. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on the email thread. It was exactly what I feared: another man, another flirtation, another connection. This Derek guy was a marketing director at one of Brandon's client companies. The emails went back 3 weeks and had already crossed professional boundaries. Michelle hadn't just been lying about Brandon. She'd been setting up an entire network. I opened her browser history. She had been researching polyamorous communities in Denver and how to transition from monogamy to ethical non-monogamy. There were bookmarked articles about open marriages, forums where people discussed having multiple partners, and even a dating app profile she created under a fake name. My hands were shaking as I took screenshots of everything. This wasn't a midlife crisis. This wasn't even about Brandon. This was Michelle trying to rewrite 20 years of marriage into something unrecognizable, and she expected me to just accept it as her evolution. I called Tom immediately. "I need to file," I said when he answered. "What happened?" he asked. "She's not just cheating with one guy. She's building an entire alternate life. Dating profiles, multiple men, plans to explore polyamory without asking if I'm even okay with it first." Tom was quiet for a beat. "How soon can you get to my office?" "Tomorrow morning," I replied. "Bring everything you've got. We're going to bury her." That night, Michelle came home late again, nearly midnight. She kissed my forehead like I was a roommate instead of her husband. "Long day?" I asked. "Exhausting," she said, heading toward the stairs. "But good. Really good." "Michelle?" I called after her. She turned back. "Yeah. Do you remember our wedding vows?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Of course I do. Why?" "Just curious," I said. "I wondered if they still meant anything to you." Her expression hardened slightly. "Kevin, don't do this. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "I'm not making anything hard," I said calmly. "I'm just trying to understand when you stop believing in the promises we made." Michelle sighed, frustrated. "Those promises were made by different people. We both changed." "Yeah," I said quietly. "We have." She went upstairs without another word. I sat there in the dark, feeling the weight of what was coming. But instead of dread, I felt something else: relief. Because I wasn't the one who had broken us. And soon, everyone would know it. I met with Tom the next morning and signed the divorce papers. He had prepared everything, citing irreconcilable differences, but with all the documentation attached showing Michelle's infidelity, the misuse of marital funds, and her plans to continue seeing multiple partners. "Colorado's a no-fault state," Tom explained. "But this evidence will help with asset division and make sure she doesn't try to claim you abandoned the marriage." "When does she get served?" I asked. "I can have the papers delivered tomorrow if you want," Tom said. "But you need to be prepared for the fallout. She's going to feel blindsided." "Good," I said. "She should know what that feels like." That evening, I called Ashley. It was time to tell her before she heard it from her mother. "Hey, Dad," Ashley answered. "What's up?" "I need to talk to you about something important," I said, my voice steady. "Your mom and I are getting divorced." There was silence on the other end. "Then what?" "What?" she asked. I took a breath. "Your mother's been having an affair with her boss. She asked me to accept it, to let her continue seeing him and potentially other people." "I can't do that, Ash." "I won't." "Oh my God," Ashley whispered. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "I know you didn't," I said. "And I didn't want to burden you with this, but I needed you to hear it from me first. Your tuition is already paid for the semester, and that won't change. You're my priority, always." Ashley was quiet for a moment. "Does Mom know you're filing?" "She will tomorrow," I replied. "Good," Ashley said, her voice firm. "I can't believe she'd do this to you. To us." "Your mother made her choices," I said carefully. "You don't have to pick sides, honey." "Dad, I'm 20 years old," Ashley replied. "I'm old enough to know right from wrong, and what she did is wrong." After we hung up, I felt both relieved and heavy. My daughter knew the truth now, and she made her own judgment. The next day, I went to work like normal. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone started ringing. It was Michelle. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, then started texting. "What the hell is this? You have me served at work." Call me right now. I didn't respond. Tom had warned me not to engage directly. Let the lawyers handle everything. An hour later, Michelle showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop her, but Michelle barged into my workspace, divorce papers in hand, her face flushed with anger. Kevin, what is this? Michelle demanded, waving the papers. I looked up calmly from my computer. It's a divorce petition. I thought that was pretty clear. You can't just do this without talking to me first. I tried talking to you, I said evenly. You told me I had two choices, accept your affair or stay out of your way. So, I picked option 3. Michelle's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or strategic. This isn't what I wanted. No, I agreed. You wanted permission to cheat while keeping the safety net of our marriage. I'm not giving you that. I love you, Michelle said, her voice breaking. This isn't about not loving you. Then you have a strange way of showing it, I replied. Now, please leave. My lawyer will be in touch. Michelle stood there for a moment, looking like she wanted to say more. Then she turned and walked out. I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly. It was done. Michelle didn't come home that night. I assumed she went to Brandon's place or maybe to Tiffany's. I didn't care anymore. What I did care about was making sure everyone knew the truth. Not just Ashley, but the people Michelle had been lying to for months. I'd been sitting on something explosive, proof that Tiffany wasn't just Michelle's cheerleader in all of this. She was involved with Brandon too. I'd found messages between Tiffany and Brandon that went back almost as far as Michelle's. The three of them had been operating in some kind of twisted triangle, where loyalty and honesty were just words people used when it was convenient. Brandon had been sleeping with both of them, and Tiffany's husband, Greg, had no idea. Greg was a decent guy, a civil engineer like me. Actually, we'd met a few times at barbecues and holiday parties. He didn't deserve what was happening to him any more than I did. So I called him. Greg, it's Kevin Walsh, I said when he answered. Michelle's husband. Hey, Kevin, Greg said, sounding friendly. What's going on? I need to meet with you, I said. It's important, and it's about Tiffany. We met at a bar near his house that evening. I brought printed copies of the messages between Tiffany and Brandon, along with screenshots showing the timeline of their affair. Greg's face went pale as he read through them. Jesus Christ, he muttered. How long has this been going on? At least for months, I said. Maybe longer. She and Michelle were covering for each other. Greg set the papers down and rubbed his face with both hands. I thought we were solid. I thought she was happy. So did I said quietly. But apparently we were both wrong. We sat in silence for a while. Two men who'd been betrayed by people they trusted, trying to make sense of something that would never make sense. Finally, Greg looked up. What are you going to do? I've already filed for divorce, I said. The papers were served yesterday. Greg nodded slowly. I think I need to do the same. I'm sorry, man, I said. I know this isn't easy, Greg replied bitterly. Neither is living with someone who thinks you're too stupid to notice. The next evening, Michelle finally came home. She walked in like she still belonged there, dropping her purse on the counter. We need to talk, Michelle announced. No, we don't, I said. Everything goes through the lawyers now. Kevin, please, she said, her voice softening. Can we just have one conversation without all this hostility? Hostility. I repeated. Michelle, you destroyed our marriage and then acted like I was the problem for not accepting it. You don't get to ask for civility now. She stepped closer. I made mistakes. I know that, but we can still fix this. No, we can't, I said firmly. And just so you know, Greg knows about Tiffany and Brandon. Michelle's face went white. What? I told him everything, I said. Because he deserved to know the truth, just like I did. You had no right. I had every right. I cut her off. You and Tiffany thought you could play your games without consequences. Now you're both dealing with them. Michelle's shock turned to anger. You're destroying lives. No, I said quietly. You destroyed them. I'm just making sure everyone knows who's responsible. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Good, because that's exactly what I'd become to her. 2 weeks after serving Michelle with divorce papers, her family requested a meeting. I almost declined, but something told me I needed to face them one last time. Michelle's parents lived in a quiet neighborhood in Lakewood. When I arrived, the entire family was there. Her mother, Carol, her father, Richard, and her younger sister, Jennifer. Michelle sat on the couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Richard started speaking before I even sat down. Kevin, we need to understand what happened here. Michelle says you blindsided her with divorce papers without giving her a chance to work things out. I placed my phone on the coffee table. That's interesting, because she gave me two choices: accept her affair or watch it happen. I chose a third option. Carol leaned forward. Marriages go through rough patches. You can't just give up at the first sign of trouble. First sign, I repeated calmly. Your daughter spent 6 months planning an affair, spent our money on hotel rooms with her boss, created dating profiles to meet other men, and then told me I needed to evolve and accept it. That's not a rough patch. That's a demolition. Jennifer crossed her arms. You were always kind of controlling, Kevin. Maybe if you'd given Michelle more freedom. I pulled out my phone and opened a folder of screenshots. Let me show you what freedom looks like. I turned the screen toward them. Messages between Michelle and Brandon. The calendar bookings. The text with Tiffany where Michelle talked about how easy I was to manage. The conversation where she discussed pursuing other men after Brandon. The room went silent as they passed the phone around. Richard's face turned red as he read. Carol's hand went to her mouth. Jennifer just stared at the screen. Michelle, Richard finally said, his voice tight. Is this true? Michelle's eyes filled with tears. I was trying to find myself. I was trying to be honest. Honest. Richard cut her off. You lied to everyone. To Kevin. To us. To yourself. This isn't finding yourself. This is destroying your family. Carol looked at me, her expression pained. Kevin, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. I know you didn't, I said quietly. But you needed to see the truth. Michelle stood abruptly. You're all acting like I'm some kind of monster. I stood to face her. You wanted to keep the security of our marriage while exploring other options. You wanted to have everything without sacrificing anything. That's not happiness, Michelle. That's selfishness. I loved you, Michelle whispered. No, I replied. You loved the idea of me being there while you did whatever you wanted. That's not the same thing. I turned to her parents. I didn't come here for your approval. I came here so you'd know the truth before Michelle rewrites it. The divorce is happening. Ashley knows everything, and she's made her choice. You can believe whatever you want, but I'm done defending myself against someone who never respected me to begin with. I walked toward the door, but Richard stopped me. Kevin, he said, extending his hand. For what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. You're a good man. You deserved better than this. I shook his hand, nodded to Carol and Jennifer, and walked out. Behind me, I heard Michelle start crying, but I didn't turn back. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Michelle got the house. I didn't want it anymore. Too many memories of a life that turned out to be a lie. I took my half of the retirement accounts, my truck, and my dignity. Ashley came home from college that weekend to help me move into my new apartment, a modern 2-bedroom place closer to downtown Denver. It wasn't big, but it was mine. I'm proud of you, Dad, Ashley said as we unpacked boxes in the living room. I know this wasn't easy. It was necessary, I replied. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. We ordered pizza and spent the evening setting up furniture. At one point, Ashley's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Mom's texting me again, she said, asking if I'll come visit her. You don't have to decide right now, I told her. I already decided, Ashley said firmly. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. Maybe someday I'll be ready to talk to her, but not now. I pulled my daughter into a hug. I love you, kiddo. Love you too, Dad. A few weeks later, I ran into Tom at a coffee shop. He was with a woman around my age, attractive, professional-looking, with kind eyes. Kevin, Tom called out. Come meet someone. This is Patricia. She works at the firm as a paralegal. Patricia smiled and shook my hand. Tom's told me about you. I'm glad things worked out in your favor. Thanks, I said. Still adjusting, but I'm getting there. Patricia just moved here from Seattle, Tom added with a knowing grin. She's looking for recommendations on good hiking trails. I caught his meaning and smiled. I know a few. Maybe I could show you sometime. Patricia's smile widened. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than anger or relief. I felt hope. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sun set over the mountains. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. How are you holding up, son? I typed back. Better than I expected. Taking it one day at a time. His response came quickly. That's all any of us can do. Proud of you. I pocketed my phone and took a deep breath of cool evening air. Michelle tried to rewrite our story into something where she was the enlightened one and I was the obstacle. But in the end, I'd written my own ending. One where I chose self-respect over convenience, truth over comfort, and freedom over fear. Brandon's agency shut down 2 months after the divorce. Turns out his disruption model wasn't sustainable. Last I heard, he moved to Austin to start over. Tiffany and Greg divorced around the same time Michelle and I did. Greg remarried last month, someone he'd known from his engineering firm. They look happy in the photos. As for Michelle, I heard through mutual friends that she was still trying to find herself, bouncing between short-term relationships and self-help retreats. I hoped she'd find what she was looking for, but it wasn't my problem anymore. I'd build a new life, one where loyalty mattered, where promises meant something, and where I didn't have to compromise my values to make someone else comfortable. And that was worth more than any marriage built on lies.